Commander Zixathara watched the blue marble of Earth rotate slowly on the main display of the Dominion's fist. Her mandibles clicked with satisfaction as she reviewed the invasion plans one final time. The preliminary scans had been clear. The planet's inhabitants were primitive, barely having achieved rudimentary spaceflight. Their weapons were chemical-based projectiles and crude explosives. By all calculations, the conquest would be complete within 3 rotations. "Signal the fleet," she commanded, her 4 arms moving gracefully across the control interface. "Begin descent protocols. Target their major population centers first." 3,000 Keth Mori warships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, their shields shimmering against the primitive weapons fire that greeted them. Cities burned. Governments fell. Within hours, humanity's military resistance had crumbled. Zixathara permitted herself a moment of pride. The galactic hegemony would be pleased. Earth would make an excellent mining colony, and its bipedal inhabitants would serve well as laborers once properly conditioned. But then something unexpected happened. The humans didn't surrender. "Commander," her tactical officer, HFY, reported with obvious confusion. "The surviving population centers are reorganizing. They're forming guerrilla cells." Zixathara's compound eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Our psych profiles indicated they would submit once their leadership structures collapsed." "The data suggests otherwise, Commander. They're using primitive communication networks to coordinate attacks. And..." HFY hesitated. "They're adapting our technology at an alarming rate." On the tactical display, red dots began appearing across the planetary surface. Human resistance cells were not only surviving, but multiplying. Reports flooded in from ground forces, improvised explosive devices constructed from Keth Mori power cells, captured plasma rifles being reverse-engineered in basement workshops, and most disturbing of all, humans who seemed to learn from every engagement. Dr. Sarah Chen crouched in the ruins of what had once been MIT, her hands working frantically on the alien power core she'd salvaged from a downed fighter. Around her, a dozen other survivors watched anxiously as she connected Earth-made components to the alien technology. "The neural pathways are similar to our quantum processors," she muttered, more to herself than to the others. "If I can just bypass their encryption protocols." Sparks flew from the makeshift device, and suddenly the abandoned laboratory was bathed in an eerie blue glow. The alien power core hummed to life, now feeding energy into human-built weapons systems. "My God," whispered Professor Martinez, a former colleague. "Sarah, do you realize what you've done?" She looked up, her eyes gleaming with fierce determination. "I've given us a fighting chance." Across the globe, similar scenes played out. In the Amazon, indigenous tribes used their knowledge of jungle warfare to ambush Keth Mori patrols. In the Himalayas, mountain climbers turned the treacherous terrain into a death trap for alien ground forces. In the urban ruins of New York, former Wall Street traders applied game theory to outmaneuver enemy squadrons. But it wasn't just their adaptability that began to unnerve the Keth Mori forces. It was their refusal to break. Captain Thexera of the ground forces sent increasingly frantic reports to the command ship. His troops, bred for warfare across a dozen star systems, were being systematically worn down by an enemy that should have been extinct. "They don't fight like any species we've encountered," he reported during an emergency briefing. "When we destroy one cell, 3 more appear. When we kill their leaders, new ones emerge from their own ranks. They're relentless." Commander Zixathara studied the casualty reports with growing alarm. In 3 rotations, they had lost more ships and personnel than in their previous 5 conquests combined. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were evolving their tactics in real time. Then came the transmission that changed everything. "Attention, Kethmori forces." The voice crackled over all frequencies, speaking in perfect galactic standard. "This is Admiral Lisa Rodriguez of the Terran Resistance. We've analyzed your technology, studied your tactics, and reverse-engineered your communications. We know you call yourselves conquerors, but you've made one critical error." Zixthara's blood ran cold as the human continued. "You assumed we'd fight your war. But we don't fight fair. We fight to win." Across the planet, simultaneously, human resistance cells activated devices they'd been building in secret. Not weapons, but something far more devastating to the Kethmori war machine. Quantum scramblers that turned the aliens' own technology against them. Kethmori ships began falling from the sky as their navigation systems failed. Ground forces found their weapons refusing to fire as humans hijacked their neural interfaces. The invaders' greatest advantage, their technological superiority, became their greatest weakness as humanity turned their own tools into instruments of defeat. Commander. Zixthara watched in horror as her mighty fleet became a collection of floating scrap metal. The humans had done the impossible. They had not only survived the initial assault, but had completely reversed the balance of power in a matter of days. As escape pods jettisoned from the dying command ship, Zixthara transmitted one final message. To the galactic hegemony. Recommendation: reclassify Sol 3 inhabitants as Class X threat species. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the roof of the reclaimed MIT building, watching the last of the alien ships limp away into the star-filled sky. Around her, the lights of a wounded but unbroken civilization began to flicker back to life. "Think they'll be back?" asked Professor Martinez. Sarah smiled grimly, her hand resting on the improved plasma rifle at her side. Now powered by human innovation and alien technology working in perfect, deadly harmony. "Let them try," she said. "We'll be ready." In the Yao, vast cosmos, word spread quickly among the star-faring civilizations. There was a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system, inhabited by a species that refused to be conquered. The Kethmori had learned what countless others would eventually discover, that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their absolute refusal to give up. And in the depths of space, the galactic hegemony quietly updated their star charts, marking Sol 3 with a simple notation that would save countless alien lives. Quarantine zone, dangerous species present. The age of humanity had begun.